the floor to Ms. Pauline Leonard from the Environment and Climate Change Statistics area in the Statistics Division in ECLAC, who will be helping us by moderating this very important side event about our Development Account Project 12th tranche on climate change and disaster statistics for Caribbean small island development states. Thank you very much for joining, and Pauline, I give the floor to you now.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this side event to the Statistical Commission of the United Nations. This side event is on SIDS relevant climate change and disasters indicators in the Caribbean. We have a very interesting panel today on such an important topic. So I remind all our panelists to stick to 7 minutes. After 5 minutes, they will listen to this. And after 7 minutes, again. I apologize in advance about this strict time management, but this will allow fairness among panelists and participation from our listeners who are already numerous to listening to us now. Please feel free to share all on the chat, all the questions you might have, and all the presentations will be made available on the event website, which we'll share on the chat right away. So without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker, who is the director of the ECLAC Sub-Regional Headquarters for the Caribbean, Mrs. Diane Quallis. Diane, you have the floor, and Raphael will share your presentation.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much, Pauline, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone, to my colleagues in Santiago, and my colleagues across the region. I'm not going to take too much time on that since I only have 7 minutes. Welcome all. Wonderful to be here with you. And this is such an important project for the Caribbean because we, well know the challenges that the region faces in respect of data. And it is extra special important for us to have increased capacity for monitoring and measurement for implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and our other Sustainable Development platforms. So this development account project is extremely important to the Caribbean. Its objective, can we go to the next slide? Who changes the slides? Oh, I do. Okay. So its objective really is to enhance the indigenous capacity of the countries that we are targeting to address the impact of climate change and to promote disaster risk reduction, including the risks related to COVID-19. It will also seek to strengthen statistical and institutional capacity of the target countries so as to improve policy coherence in implementation of SDGs, the Small Pathway, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework, which are the critical development platforms for the Caribbean. And we seek to do that through strengthening, the national statistical capacities of the Caribbean states to sustainably produce and disseminate relevant internationally agreed climate change and disaster risk reduction indicators, and to strengthen the regional capacities of the Caribbean stakeholders to use the indicators for sustainable evidence-based development policies. Next slide. The project is funded by the 12th tranche, and it begins this year, and it's supposed to run through 2023. Our strategy in implementing this project is a two-pronged approach. Activities will be implemented at the sub-regional level, and then we will also have activities, very specific technical activities offered at the national level to select pilot countries. The project will provide specialized statistical support to identify and produce select, relevant, and prioritized indicators and metrics to monitor climate change and disaster occurrences and impacts, including impacting economic activities such as tourism and environmental integrity. Capacity building interventions that are tailor-made to circumstances, policy priorities, and statistical capacities, including data availability of Caribbean countries, will also be implemented. In all of these activities, we're ensuring that the sustainability of the training process will be of paramount importance. We hope to be able to achieve this by establishing a community of practice, maybe even a regional network of environmental statisticians, organizing webinars. We're going to be doing online training modules, various activities that are designed to extend beyond the period of the project implementation, because this is only a 2-year window. Given the current measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the project focuses on an implementation method that comprises online activities in the first instance, with the possibility of these becoming on-site activities once the circumstances allow for this. I have a experience implementing similar training activities across Latin America. So we're doing this now. We're putting this experience in this project. Our methodology will include technical assistance through remote mentoring, the use of proven regional collaboration tools, such as the Environmental Statistics Biblioguide and the Regional Network on Environmental Statistics, regional and national training workshops, webinars, online training courses, and on-site expert support. Next slide. So the main stakeholders, next slide, I kind of ran through that quickly. Main stakeholders are national counterparts. We want to have active engagement of the statistical offices, disaster risk reduction authorities, emergency authorities, environment and climate change authorities. We want to have the whole gamut of national counterparts. We also want the national key stakeholders involved, sectoral ministries, universities, research centers, civil society organizations, private sector, and all those actors that are involved in the production and use of climate change and disaster indicators. And we're also, of course, looking to ensure that we have the rich involvement and possible partnership with the UNFCCC, the UN Disaster Risk Reduction, UNEP, SDIMA, the 5 Cs, various regional and sub-regional intergovernmental organizations. And in addition to the targeted countries that will benefit, we will also deliver sub-regional capacity building to Caribbean member states on climate change and disaster indicators. Next slide, please. So this project is being implemented by ECLAC through the Environment, Climate Change and Statistics areas in Santiago, the Division of Statistics, led by my colleague and friend Rolando, who will speak after me, and the ECLAC sub-regional headquarters right here, under the leadership of the head of our social and statistics unit, Abdul. We'll also involve the UN Statistics Division in New York, DESA, and our colleagues at the Regional Statistics Program of the CARICOM Secretariat, and I believe that the Director Philomen is also a candidate this afternoon. Next slide. So I really just want to use this opportunity to inform you that we also have another project on strengthening institutional frameworks in the Caribbean for an integrative approach to the implementation of Agenda 2030. It's a project that's wrapping up. It will wrap up, I think, at the end of this year. Abdul can correct me. And yes, we are in the last year of this project, and we have resources available to support statistical capacity development in the member states. Talking about institutional frameworks for more effective implementation of the SDGs, and an essential part of that is building statistical capacity in the member states. And we really want to ensure that, I heard the bell, I really want to ensure that we use up the resources and the opportunity for strengthening capacity that this project offers before this year runs out. So that's just a little plug for another project that we're implementing that will certainly supplement and support the work that we're going to be doing with this very important project that we are launching and speaking to you about today. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you very much for sticking to the 7 minutes. Our second speaker is the Director of ECLAC Division of Statistics, Mr. Rolando Ocampo. Rolando, you can share your screen now, and you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Hi, very good morning and afternoon to all the colleagues. I want to thank all the panelists, in particular my dear friend Diane from ECLAC in the office in the Caribbean. But of course, Carol Hoy from Jamaica, my friend everyone know from Suriname, Mr. Jason Williams from Antigua and Barbuda, and our regional colleagues from and Dr. Philomen Harrison from CARICOM, and Mr. Emmanuel Chamberlain, the Director of Environment in the Eastern Caribbean Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States. My presentation, I'm going to, in this presentation, we aim to present a general panoramic. Can you see my presentation? Sorry. Do you see my? Okay. Yes, yes. Sorry. In this presentation, we aim to present a general panoramic of the situation of climate change and disaster indicators, with particular emphasis in the Caribbean, and to highlight the main challenges and opportunities our new development 12 project aim to address, the one that our colleague Diane presents. First, let me tell you that the Caribbean is in an asymmetrical position in relation to climate change. The region has a historical very small contribution to climate change, yet it is highly vulnerable to its effects, including disasters and its impact on people, housing, and infrastructure. Several hurricane seasons have devastated or severely affected the small island development states, the SIDS, over the last years. Economic damage and losses related to disasters in the Caribbean, thought underestimated, are up over thousands of millions of dollars. In Latin America and the Caribbean region, it is estimated that 70% of the economic cost of disasters derive from extreme climate change-related events. As a key indicator, also as a trend, the number of climate change-related disasters and the amount of directly affected persons has increased over time in the Caribbean. The good news is that the number of human deaths has decreased considerably in the past decade, perhaps as a result of disaster risk reduction programs in the SIDS countries. So since 2015, ECLAC has led 9 damage and losses assessments, we call it DALA, in the Caribbean. All of them were associated with hurricanes. This technical cooperation was carried out in Anguilla, Bahamas, Belize, the British Virgin Islands, San Martin, and Turks and Caicos Islands. The last one, it was in has to be with the hurricane in the Bahamas, which costs were around $3.6 billion. In the coming months, we in ECLAC, we are going to publish the database of these disaster assessments. And this is a unique database since it allows to see the effects of these events by economic sectors and the institutional, public, and private sector. This is very important for studying the impact of climate change in the Caribbean. The demand of statistics to compile indicators for the SDGs, Sendai framework, the Paris Agreement, climate change, as well as national development plans and policies is increasing. In contrast, The regular production of these metrics is insufficient now. The close gap between demand and supply of environmental, climate change, and disaster indicators, it is paramount that we have to work together to strengthen national capacity. There are both technical and statistical challenges as well as institutional challenge to produce regular environment, climate change, and disaster indicators in the Caribbean and in all of the Latin American region. Some of them are seen in this slide, and we will addressing them together through our new project, the Development Account 12. The availability of statistics to produce climate change indicators, climate change indicators is higher across the board for drivers and emissions, and very limited and insufficient for those at the bottom, such as the adaptation indicator. Climate change processes and statistics are relatively more available. Climate change evidence statistics in the Caribbean are available, particularly historical data series is commonly available for temperature fluctuations and precipitation. Measurement of climate change impact and vulnerability is of the utmost importance in the region, since Caribbean countries are acutely vulnerable to climate change consequences. This is 5 minutes. I have 2 more minutes. The next, I'm going to finish. Like extreme events and disasters, and like extreme events and disasters. Some statistics are produced on impact, such as the occurrence of disaster, but more are needed in the region. The statistics for sea level rise are less available. Mitigation statistics are available for renewable energies, forest cover, and disaster preparedness. Adaptation statistics and indicators are the least developed and more difficult to capture statistically, since the adaptation measures need to be taken for each specific spatial location. Finally, I want to mention that we have opportunities related to climate change for disaster statistics production here, and the new Development Account 12 project can give us the opportunity to build relevant climate change and disaster indicators for evidence-based policies. So we have champion countries in the Caribbean, of course. More developed climate change and disasters and statistics are being built in the Caribbean, and we have in our Statistics Conference of the Americas 2 working groups in this regard. We have an ongoing work on environment, climate change, and disaster statistics, particularly with our colleagues of CARICOM, plus UNEP initiative. Of course, the 2020 round of population censuses in the Caribbean is a big opportunity, and that will provide important social and climate change information for the next years. Jamaica is a great example of an inspiring, pioneering, measuring the impact of disasters on ecosystems. And we have, at the end, I want to mention that we have the possibility of jointly gaining access to common geospatial information and knowledge, and lowering its cost for climate change and disaster statistics and information and indicator production. As Diane mentioned, the collaboration with UNGGIM Americas, with another organization. One of the biggest projects that we are launching in ECLAC is the Secretariat Geo Initiative, where we are trying to build and to involve the spatial information into the statistics with, to support this process, and in particular for the climate change indicators. With this, I want to thank you for your participation, and thank you for attending this important seminar that is on the back of the Statistics Commission of this side event. Thank you very much, and over to you, Pauline.
Thank you so much, Rolando. Thank you very much for the presentation. So now, from setting the stage in the region, we're going to shift now to national situation with three examples: Jamaica, Suriname, and also Antigua and Barbuda. So first, our first speaker is the Director General of the Statistical Institute, Mrs. Carol Coy. Mrs. Coy, can you hear us? And you have the floor.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have 7 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks to you and ECLAC for inviting Statin to speak. Good afternoon, good morning. It's still morning in Jamaica. I'm going to look at some of the challenges, the opportunities in the production of the climate change indicators at Statin. Next slide for me, please. This is just a background. Jamaica is a typical small island developing state. It's low-lying, development along the coast. We, like the rest of the Caribbean, particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We're in the tropics. Cities are affected by extreme weather events such as hurricanes, tropical storms, and cyclones. And we would have been aware Jamaica has been fortunate to have missed the last major sets of hurricanes that passed through the Caribbean, and affected by climate variability, droughts, flooding, and these are a threat to human settlements, infrastructure, and economy. Next slide, please. So for us, the impact of climate change on countries like ours, it's the economic and climate sensitive sectors such as water, tourism, agriculture, forestry, and fisheries all depend on natural resources for economic development. Climate change is therefore a major threat to the development of SIDS, including Jamaica. Most SIDS rely on fossil fuels, but we are now exploring renewable sources of energy. However, emissions from SIDS are very low compared to industrialized countries. Next slide. Areas in Jamaica which are most likely impacted by it, marine and terrestrial or freshwater or human settlements and infrastructure. And you would have heard of the heavy floods we had in Jamaica last October, where actually we lost 2 persons. Agriculture and food security, tourism. Tourism contributes 9% to the GDP of Jamaica, and tourism industries employ 10% of the employed labor force, and this is highly dependent on it, can be impacted by climate change, human health, energy, and poverty. Next slide. So for us in Jamaica, the production of climate change indicators is therefore critical, given what I just said. It's used by policymakers in the planning and implementation of environmental sustainable initiatives. It also enhances for the general public the impact of climate change on the country. The data sources for us at Statin, it's all gathered from administrative data obtained from other government ministries, departments, and agencies. So Statin does not do any primary data collection for climate indicators. Next slide for me. So what are the challenges we have in Jamaica in producing? I think Rolando mentioned some of them. Typical of all environment statistics, you have limited data available when, say, compared to economic and social statistics. So this is the weakest area, I would think, of the set of statistics that you can gather. There's gaps in the time series. The information is dated. And what this basically reflects is an underdeveloped national statistics system. So this is an area that Statin as the NSO will have to focus on if we are to improve environment statistics in the country. Next slide. And this shows you an example of the gaps. This is looking at Goal 13 of the SDG, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. We only produce 33.3% of indicators. There is some data available, but again, we have not been able to produce the information. And this is typical of all environment statistics in Jamaica. Next slide. So the production of climate change indicators. So in 2017, Statin produced its first report on climate change statistics, its first and only report actually, climate change statistics in 2016. What we have also done is that on an annual basis, we have an environment statistics report, and we update the information when possible. And also in our SDG reports, that has been pushing us to get more information that can be used to as indicators of climate change. Next slide. So the report itself, the climate change statistics, the data presented in the publication was mainly based on the statistics and indicators included in the Framework for the Development of Environment Statistics, FDES. The report looks at the primary drivers of climate change, the evidence and impacts of climate change, and efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change. This report is available for download at Statin's website, www.statinga.gov.jm. Next slide. And so I'll just be highlighting just 2 minutes some of the results. We produce total carbon emissions by regulated industry. You'll notice that electrical power generation is the largest generator of CO2. Alumina and bauxite, our next major import, contributes 30%. Next slide. And you're looking at the 30-year mean rainfall by month. You'll notice that from 1971 to 2000, the mean rainfall is below that of between 1951 to 1980. Next slide. What we also look at is the estimated impact of major recent extreme climate events on Jamaica. The largest was actually in 2004, where the impact was 8% on GDP, which was Hurricane Ivan. Next slide. And one of the areas we're looking at also is primary energy source. And what we see for Jamaica is that alternate energy is gaining in use. So between 2013 to 2018, it actually increased by 28.8%, although total energy production, looking at the barrel equivalent, declined by 1.1. And I think that's the end. The next slide. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Coy, for this very interesting presentation and for the work that Statin has done on climate change statistics. So now we're going to move on to another country and to listen to Suriname, to Mr. Iwan Snow, the Director of the General Bureau of Statistics of Suriname. Mr. Snow, can you hear us? And can you share your screen? Let's see.
Yes, I hear you.
Perfect. And we can see your screen.
Okay, I'm very happy. Friends, colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm happy to be here with you, thanks to ECLAC and all organizers. I'm going to talk about environment statistics in Suriname. A short history of environment statistics in the region. Actually, the objectives of our environment statistics publication. I'm going to share some chapters and the highlights of our publication, the data collection process, a brief experience with climate change statistics, referring to the pilot survey, environment statistics challenges for Suriname, advantages and opportunities, and then the way forward. The short history of environment statistics. The CARICOM Statistics Program and the UN Statistics Division executed the project during 1999 to 2003, strengthening capacity in the compilation of statistics and indicators for conference follow-up in the CARICOM region. At the end of the project, the activities had been fully incorporated in the work program of the CARICOM Statistics Program and therefore of CARICOM member countries. In the final stages, the Standing Committee of Caribbean Statisticians, SECS, that is the sub-regional equivalent of the UN Statistical Commission, instated 3 CARICOM advisory groups. environment statistics, social gender statistics, and on the Regional Statistics Work Program, the RSWP. Later on, these were all merged into the CARICOM Advisory Group on Statistics, as we all still know it. Suriname commenced producing environment statistics compendia in 2000 and is producing these in all even years. We're not able, like Jamaica, to do it every year. We're producing gender statistics in odd years and environment statistics in even years. The objectives of the publication: we want to provide data for various subject areas and sources and contribute to a solid basis for decision making. We're producing the publication in Dutch and English. It's also to comply with national, regional, and international obligations, treaties. We follow the following guidelines: the CARICOM core set, the UNSD guidelines. This is the framework for the development of environment statistics, and the SDGs. We also want to maintain the publication rhythm and the awareness. The last, that is the ninth publication, was launched in December 2020, and it refers to the most recent years. This slide provides you the development from the first publication in 2000, where only 65 indicators, 65 tables. And now, the ninth, is at 295 tables. The first one had no graphs and figures, and the last one has 106 graphs and figures. You can see the development. We're not there yet, but we're improving. This is a data collection process. Basically, it's a year-long process. We start collecting in January, February. Then somewhere in August, we have some sort of a workshop to check. We have a zero draft, and then we check the gaps, and we try to fill the gaps. Last year, the workshop was done via Zoom because of COVID. Then we try a second round of collecting information, and by the end of the year, last year it was the 22nd of December, we launched the environment statistics publication. We had a brief experience with climate change statistics. Suriname's focal point in environment statistics was also a member of the UN expert group on environment statistics, encountered the zero draft set of climate change statistics and indicators for the first time at the first expert group meeting in 2017. I'm sure everybody in the region knows Anjali Kishun Singh of my office. After being mandated by the UN Statistical Commission in 2016 and 2018, UNSD commenced a pilot survey on the first draft global set. Due to the length and complexity of the first draft, well, it took very long to fill out, the first of many versions. And actually, even though the first draft was sent out in February, it was only in August 2020 that the GBS was able to complete the pilot survey. In November, the GBS participated in the 7th expert group meeting, and this was done via MS Teams, where the revised draft of the climate change statistics and indicators was part of the agenda. Of the 124 applicable indicators, well, 10 of them are not applicable to Suriname. They are about snow and what have you. Not me. This is SNOW, the white stuff. There was no data available for 51. So we have like a 41% data gaps. We did 2 greenhouse gas inventories in our national communication to UNFCCC in 2003 and 2008. And we're now preparing for the 3rd inventory. In 2020, that is last year, some of the data of the then draft environment statistics publication was provided to consultants working on the 3rd publication. What are the challenges? Well, in 2020, and it looks like also in 2021, the biggest challenge is COVID-19. Then, and this is the same thing that Carol Coy spoke about, there is no data available for some of the indicators, whether it be SDGs, CARICOM, or FDES. Sometimes you need a special survey, and then you lack financial and human resources. Then some data is available only intermittently because they come from surveys, such as the MIX, the census, HBS, and what have you, only conducted at certain intervals. Training with regard to metadata is necessary, and also data collection. Also, for the NSO, and in order to obtain data, the stakeholders must be constantly called or emailed, and this is time-consuming and impossible during COVID-19. Sometimes the requested data is not provided in the format that we require, and there is often a lack of metadata. Due to data gaps, international questionnaires cannot be completed fully. What are our advantages and opportunities? Good cooperation between GBS, the UN organizations. We receive a lot of support from organizations such as UNSD and CARICOM. And basically now we're expecting, after I heard Diane's presentation, I'm expecting a lot of support also coming from UNECLA. SMIN, the Suriname Environmental Information Network, is officially part of the framework law on the environment in Suriname. And since last year, besides an environment authority, there is also a Ministry for Spatial Planning and the Environment. There's a good cooperation between the GBS and the various ministries. IMEX is an important data source for the SDGs. The previous 3 publications are already on the website, and the last one will be online soon. The way forward, we're trying to collect more data on climate change for the 10th Environment Statistics publication, collaborate more with the National Policy Focal Points, publish a climate change statistics report for Suriname, and lastly, we try to keep putting good respondents in the limelight on Statistics Day. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schnood, for your very interesting presentation and all the work that Suriname is doing within the pilot on the global set on climate change statistics. There will be actually another side event organized by our colleague of UNSD on that topic next week. So now we're going to move to our last country example, which is from Antigua and Barbuda. Our speaker is Mr. Jason Williams, the data manager of the Department of the Environment. And so this perspective will be different because, as you can see, Mr. Williams is not from a national statistical office. He's from a Department of the Environment. So we wanted actually to share this different perspective from the producers and the users, and usually these two functions are meddled. So go ahead, Mr. Williams. We listen to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. As Pauline mentioned, my name is Jason Williams. I am the data manager at the Department of Environment in Antigua and Barbuda, and the head of the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Data Management Unit. Today, I'll be presenting on the work that Antigua and Barbuda has been doing in developing environmental data and information systems to inform the development of policies, as Pauline mentioned, a bit different from my previous presenters. Allow me to present the outlines of this presentation. I'll start by providing an overview of the Department of Environment. I'll move next to discussing environmental data and information and highlighting the parties responsible for managing these data. Move next on to speaking about the environmental data and information systems and databases that are being developed and managed by the Department of Environment, and finally, some thoughts about some policies. So the Department of Environment in Antigua and Barbuda was established in 2019 with the passage of the Environmental Protection and Management Act. The department has several functions. What I want to do is highlight a few of the most prominent ones here. So we're coordinating the development and implementation of policies relating to governance, sustainable development, climate change, environment and natural resource management portfolio. We also are the national focal point for the Rio Conventions. So that's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. The DOE, on behalf of the government, negotiates these MEAs and are responsible for reporting on these MEAs. We've also developed a mechanism for sustainably funding environmental management, and under this, a Sustainable Island Research Framework Fund has been established. And the function that I want to spend more time on discussing here today is the last one presented on the slide, which is gathering, analyzing, publishing, and disseminating environmental data and information. So there are several definitions for environmental information, but we can all agree that environmental information covers a broad range of topics, such as the environment itself, including components of air, water, earth, habitats of animals and plants, other things that affect the environment, such as emissions, radiation, noise, other forms of pollution, and as well as the policies, plans, and laws on the environment. In Antigua and Barbuda, the Department of Environment is responsible to collect and manage environmental information. This responsibility falls on the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Data Management Unit at the DOE, and we're responsible for monitoring and evaluating the implementation of environmental projects, coordinating field data collection, coordinating environmental database-driven projects, and we work very closely with our National Statistics Division. These slides now, I want to just highlight some of the environmental data and information systems that are being developed or developed by Antigua and Barbuda. So the first one I want to speak about here is the monitoring, reporting, and verification. So I would have mentioned earlier that the Department of Environment is the national focal point for the UNFCCC, and this system here is being developed specifically for this convention. So we track specific outcomes and targets, for example, the nationally determined contributions, by monitoring a series of indicators, and this information will be used to report. So this system is being developed under one of our capacity building initiative for transparency projects. It will collect data on mitigation, actions, adaptation, loss and damage, and support. So the framework has been finalized and the portal is in development. Next on to the National Environmental Data and Information System. So this system will allow Antigua and Barbuda to collate and manage data to report on all 3 Rio conventions. So what was done was a reporting format was reviewed, a series of indicators were extracted, and the data will be compiled based on these indicators. So the portal is in development and it should be released within the next month. We have also our Natural Resources Inventory, which is in direct response to our Environmental Protection and Management Act of 2019, right? Which this calls for a system to be developed to disseminate information on environmental resources. So this is a map-based system whereby persons will be able to visit the site and access data on environmental resources, download the data sets, create their own maps, and publish their maps created in the system. Next on to environment statistics. This is what my colleagues would have spoken a bit about in their presentation. So we also manage an environmental statistics database. We work directly with the statistics division for this component. What we've done is identified thematic areas and indicators, and we collect information based on these indicators. This data that is compiled here in this database helps us to report to requests for information from entities such as the United Nations Statistical Division. We also report on Sustainable Development Goals, and we also are responsible for preparing the national greenhouse gas inventories, and the data comes from this database as well. The Department of Environment is implementing a National Adaptation Plan project, and under this project, we're executing an activity to develop climate risk maps. So these maps will be developed using downscale climate projections as well as national adaptation data. So the data will be published on a portal, which is supposed to be released also in the next month. And finally here we have our NDC web dashboard. So this will become a component of the Department of Environment's website to publish our progress towards achieving the NDC targets. I would have mentioned the MRV system earlier. So the data collected in the MRV system will feed into this dashboard. This is my final slide. So we can all agree that without sound and credible data, it's difficult to develop and implement policies. So on the slide here, I just have a few of the policies and plans that have been developed recently in Antigua and Barbuda based on data. So we have policies at the national level, such as in medium-term development strategy. The Department of Environment is also developing a national environmental policy. We support reporting on NDC targets and reporting to our multilateral environmental agreements. We're also in the process of preparing a state of the environment report. So we also support the development of different plans, such as the local area plans, protected area systems plans, and so forth. So I want to end my presentation here and thank you for the opportunity to present on the work that the Department of Environment is doing as it relates to developing and implementing environmental data and information systems. Back over to you, Pauline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for this very interesting work that you are doing. And it's very interesting to see also the links with geospatial information and the maps. So now we will be closing this part of the side event related to national country experiences to move to very interesting initiatives in the region from two major stakeholders, the CARICOM Secretariat and the OECS. So first, I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Philomen Harrison, who is the Program Director for Regional Statistics of the CARICOM Secretariat. Dr. Harrison, you have the floor. Thank you so much. Dr. Harrison, you are muted at the moment. Yes, we can hear you now, and we can see the presentation, but I guess it's not the first slide.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that hitch. Well, I'll go. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, and thank you, ECLAC, for this initiative. I'll go straight to where it all started, and as Mr. Snow mentioned, we would have done some work with UNSC CARICOM, actually the first tranche of the Development Account Project in 1999, Strengthening Capacity Conference Follow-ups, trying to target and measure and monitor various international goals and targets. At that time, only one country, Belize, had produced an environment statistics report in 1999, and Jamaica was also commencing work in this area. The project launch of this project took place in Belize, that is the environment component, and in that launch, a core set of statistics and indicators were identified to be compiled by member states based on environmental issues that were considered critical to the CARICOM region. As a consequence of first regional publication, the CARICOM Environment in Figures 2002 was published. It was one of the main outputs. And in terms of sustainability, as Iwan also mentioned, a CARICOM advisory group on statistics was formed, and a program on environment statistics and social gender statistics programs were developed. So where we are now in terms of process, a number of capacity building regional workshops, South-South attachment, examples, Suriname, Trinidad, Jamaica and Belize to Dominica, as well as in-country support, a technical working group were held over the years, supported by the World Bank, UNDP, European Union, etc. Right? Post the project, a number of countries over the past 20 years have produced environmental statistics publications, compendia, including the following 5+ publications: Belize, Jamaica, about 10+, Bermuda 10+, Suriname 9, Dominica 5 to 6, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines that started fairly recently is at 5. Also 1 to 4 publications, Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Barbados, and Montserrat. Most of the remaining countries, including Antigua, would have undertaken data collection and submitted to the CARICOM Secretariat data under 12 themes, which are listed there, including tourism, land use and agriculture, natural disasters, energy and mineral resources, waste. Well, waste and water, I think that is collected by the UNSC. They used to collect air before, but we don't know. So forest, biodiversity, etc. The Secretariat has now produced a total of 4 CARICOM environment statistics reports, plus its first climate change report. What is the approach to the publication of the climate change statistics publications? Essentially, as Carol said, we use the FDES 2013 and specifically the IPCC schematic framework. The tables are previously published under the environment statistics were rearranged under 5 components: drivers, impacts, adaptation, mitigation, and vulnerability. New tables were identified where required, and the series of data were extended up to 2019 for some tables and about 2012 to 2013 for other tables. As Carol mentioned, climate change is of high importance to CARICOM small island development states, and I believe that a lot of the indicators from this original CARICOM program are now reflected to some extent in the SDGs, and therefore we hope that this activity and the production of this first climate change statistical report for CARICOM can usefully inform the current project being executed by ECLAC and partners. Key lessons learned: strengthening environment statistics can lead to the production of climate change statistics. Of course, a major challenge, of course, is resources, but I must single out my colleague from the Secretariat, Ms. Faustina Wiggins, and of course persons like Angeli from Suriname in terms of their distinguished work. Of course, Janet from Hogan Martin from Jamaica as well in terms of the field. So some highlights. Selected tables under emissions to air. We have total emissions of direct greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide emissions, nitrous oxide, methane. So these are tables in the report. On the drivers continued, total emissions of indirect greenhouse gases, non-methane volatile organic compounds. Under energy resources, we have CARICOM's import of fossil fuels, value of CARICOM's import of fossil fuels. These last two tables were obtained from our trade database. So it is useful administrative resource in this case. On impacts, again, we have forests, total protected forest areas, and forest area as percentage of land areas. All these are data submitted by countries, which we compiled in terms of the report. The link to the report is given there on the slide, so you can click on it. These are some of the charts. So, for example, forest area over land area for 1990, 2010, and 2016. You can see for Suriname the high percentage of forest area. Also for Guyana, Dominica, I believe, but you can see a reduction in terms of release. So again, you have some very rich information already available on climate change in this regard. This is information in terms of temperatures. We have 3 countries. You can see in terms of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the rise in average temperature compared to the others, of course, and a bit lower for St. Kitts and Nevis and St. Lucia. And also in terms of disasters, we have lots of information in terms of the total casualties, total population affected persons by flooding, power outage, damage in US dollars. For example, we have good documentation on hazardous events and disasters by year, country, type of disaster, similar to what Carol showed for Jamaica. Name of disaster, date started, total casualties, of which killed, injured, and data for 7 countries as far back as 1989 to 2019. So we hope that the CARICOM regional strategy as well as the national strategies would usefully strengthen the collection of admin data, which is the main source of this data, as well as the census, and that it can usefully contribute to the existing project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrison. We totally agree, and we know that about the key message you sent about that we cannot have good climate change statistics if we don't have solid and robust environment statistics at the end of the day. So thank you so much for your presentation, and we're going to move on to our last but not least speaker, Mr. Emmanuel Chamberlain, Director of Environment of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Mr. Chamberlain, can you hear us? You are muted at the moment. I am not sure your audio is connected.
Mr. Chamberlain, we cannot hear you right now, and we cannot see the presentation. Okay, we are seeing a blurry thing. So can you try it again, the presentation, and can we test the audio right now? No, right now we cannot hear you. Can you hear us? Can you give me a signal in the camera? No, we cannot hear you. If you want, you can disconnect the headset. Can you disconnect the headphones? Disconnect. Okay, try to talking. No. Okay, you can click in the microphone. Next to the microphone button, you have a little arrow. It has the options. Can you click it? Now go to settings, and you can test the microphone. In microphone, you can select the one that you can use. Okay, you need to select one and get out of that screen. Okay, so if you don't have anything, you can restart. Can you disconnect and connect again, please? Okay, thanks. We can wait for a few seconds. Okay.
Perhaps in the meantime, we're going to see if there are questions on the chat. As I said at the beginning, you can ask any question to our panelists through the chat, or you can also raise your hand so that we can open your mic and your video so that you can ask your question, or also comment about what is the current work in your country related to climate change statistics and disaster statistics. As a brief reminder, I'm going to also send again to the chat the website where you can find all the presentations and the recording of the event.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
I know, we did the test before and it did perfectly. It always happens. So, would you mind sharing your presentation now?
Doing that.
If it works.
Okay. Can you see it now?
It's loading. Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Can you see the presentation mode?
No, at the moment we can see your mode, the presenter mode, but not the public mode. Oh yes, that's it.
Okay, great.
There
All
are
right.
two little gray squares. Yes, if you remove them from your screen, I think these must be the WebEx.
There you go.
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good day everyone. Sorry again for the intermission, but it's wonderful to be on this side event. Thanks again to the invitation from ECLAC, and I really enjoyed the presentations from colleagues from the other agencies and countries. So just a little on the OECS. The OECS essentially consists of 11 of the small island developing states in the Eastern Caribbean, and we continue to promote regional integration, which includes economic harmonization, as well as good governance and human and legal rights. And the issue of small island developing states is one which is particularly relevant to us, and I'm sure we all on this forum would be able to understand the special circumstances of SIDS, as has been articulated very clearly in the Samoa pathway, and these all apply to the islands of the Eastern Caribbean. And certainly well demonstrated in the whole issue of climate change and disaster. And really just wanted to show this slide to be very, very practical. I'm sure we've all seen the images, but the figures are also impactful. And if we consider the case of Dominica, if you look at the photo at the bottom, in the forefront, that is Prime Minister Roosevelt's carrot after Irma hit the BVI, visiting to console the people there after that hit on September 10th. Then 8 days later, his country was hit, and this is a visit from the UN Secretary General. And this is, as we keep on going through this cycle that we call cyclical retardation, where keep on being hit and having to rise again. We refer to this as the paradox of paradise. If I were to borrow from the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Report 5, it says that climate could be one of the causes why some countries are trapped. And this is where the whole issue of environmental statistics and climate and disaster statistics become very relevant, because as we continue to advocate, as we continue to call for support to address mitigation adaptation, many times we are hindered from making that strong case because of a lack of data, lack of statistics. The region is really suffering from a lack of environmental statistics so that we can continue to make that compelling case. At the OECS region, we have been at the forefront of championing environmental matters. The St. George's Declaration of Principles on Environmental Sustainability has been around since the year 2000, and we recently, actually August 2020, would have completed the updating of what we now refer to as SGD, St. George's Declaration 2040, which is aligned with the Samoa Pathway and the SDG 2030 agenda, but also looks beyond and seeking to promote a better quality of life for the people of the OECS by continuing to promote effective environmental management and sustainable use of our natural capital. Now, in and amongst there is the whole issue of data and information management. When the St. George's Declaration was first framed, there was an expectation that member states would be reporting regularly, and so we could generate state of the environment reports, both at the national and regional level. However, that has been a significant challenge. In reframing the St. George's Declaration, we have designed and proposed a new way of through partnerships and collective action, gathering that information so that we can be in a position to assist the countries generate those reports. And this is where very timely partnership with ECLAC becomes relevant, as we engage with ECLAC on the promotion of the Escazú Agreement, which promotes rights and access to environmental information. There was a very convenient nexus between what the Escazú Agreement is trying to fulfill, as well as what we're trying to advance through the revised St. George's Declaration in terms of promoting environmental information. And so we entered into an MOU which would help to facilitate a regional environmental information system, at least some initial designing around it. And as a result of this agreement, we have done some initial work, which included a review of the OECS environment frameworks related to environmental information systems, documenting the existing or proposed EIS and registers. And you heard from Antigua and Barbuda just now, they're making some progress in that regard. St. Lucia has now a very good system that is live and then could be a good benchmark for the other countries. And we are seeking to move forward with that process, identifying the gaps, strengths, and opportunities. We have conducted a multi-stakeholder survey to address those gaps, needs, and priorities. And the consultant has proposed a sub-regional structure for consideration. And this, at least initial view of the structure is what we are going to mull over and to decide whether it is feasible in collaboration with our member states and partners. We recognize that there are several partners who are also have similar aspirations towards ensuring proper data in the region. And so it's very important, especially where resources are very scarce, that we collaborate and will be as efficient as possible. There are issues to consider, including the data services, new knowledge and creating new knowledge and understanding, promoting partnerships, and building the capacity that is critical to ensure that this is sustainable. My final slide here, continuing on issues to be considered moving forward. The need for new institutional arrangements, because that is critical, foundational if we are to have an REIS. The role of civil society, indigenous and local communities, and the private sector in that process. Strategy-based approach to environmental management information systems, and finally, considering the technology-related issues to ensure that it is feasible and can be adopted by the various agencies and partners and CSOs and others who would be expected to participate in this process. So as I close, just want to extend sincere thanks to ECLAC for the partnership. We have laid the foundation together to develop the REIS, and moving forward, we're looking to engage with our member states and partners on the next steps on the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for this very interesting presentation. I think it does build synergies between all the current initiatives. So just to start opening the floor, I remind the participants that they can ask their questions on the chat, or they can also ask in the chat so that we can open their mic and their video so that they can directly comment or ask questions to our panelists. So now for this section of the side event, I will give the floor to Mr. Abdullahi Abdul Kadri, who is the coordinator of the Statistics and Social Development Unit at ECLAC Sub-Regional Headquarters for the Caribbean. Abdul, you have the floor.
Pauline and colleagues for your participation so far. It's really, I think, a special event, even though it's a side event. Apart from the meeting of the standing committee of the SCCS, Standing Committee of Caribbean Statisticians, I don't think there is any other forum where you will have these eminent professionals and the thought leader in the area of statistics in the Caribbean being available at the same event. So we're really glad to have every one of you on board. We've had presentations from the directors of statistics at the national level, and as well as from CARICOM and from the OECS. So from Dr. Harrison as well as Mr. Chamberlain. Now, what we'll have to do now is to try, in the limited time that we have, to try and get as many feedback as we could. But just to provide you with a little bit context as well to the project, because as you've heard in the presentation, the countries are actively doing work in this area and at the regional level, as you've heard from Dr. Harrison as well as Mr. Chamberlain. Now, what we need to do is now to build on what has been done. And going by what we've realized at ECLAC, especially with reference to the SDGs, when you look at the tiers of the SDG indicators, the environmental, in the environmental area, environment statistics are the ones that are predominantly categorized as category as tier 3 of the SDG indicators. And in our support to member states, we've also realized, and Ms. Coy did mention that the environment statistics are the ones that are hardly produce or that you have enough data from the member states in reporting on the SDG implementation for the VNR. And the same goes for, if you have that situation in Jamaica, we can only assume what happens with other countries. And as we provide support to member states in the preparation of their VNR, we continue to see this data gap in environment statistics. And many of you are quite familiar with the DALA, the disaster, the damage and loss assessment that ECLAC performs. And in Mr. Chamberlain's presentation, he alluded to the hurricane that impacted Dominica. What we have experienced with DALA is that when we go out to do this data, we do not have statistics on disaster, which will actually assist in making this assessment. So looking at all these gaps, despite the fact that a lot is being done, a lot more still needs to be done. And that is what brought this project to life. And with this project, what we hope to do is to build on what has been done so far and other parallel programs that are ongoing, so that we can have to assist or in a way improve the capacity of the Caribbean countries to produce this data and to make statistics more readily available on disaster as well as on the environment. That being said, we've listened to the presentation from all the presenters, which are quite informative and very useful to us. So now it's the time for us to, if you have comments that you would like to make or you have specific questions to the panelists or to ECLAC with respect to the project that we are presenting on today, we would like to hear from you. And so if you could indicate by raising your hand, I don't know if you could do that, then our colleagues in IT will let you speak. But more efficiently, you could type your question or your comment in the chat for everyone to see, and I will relay that. If it's a question, then I will direct you to one of the panelists. Anyone wants to take the lead? Or should I volunteer some people? I know we have Clarice and Junior Clarice Stromquist and Junior Alexis on the call. So if you want to, given that you're already familiar with this project, I don't know if you would like to make some comments. Let us know. There is a comment from Bianca. So let me read that. That says, good afternoon all. This webinar has been very useful. I am representing UNEP. This is Bianca Young. And we are in the process of developing the World Environment Situation Rule for the Caribbean. The goal is to populate this data platform with environmental data and information to support the writing of the UN Common Country Analysis, and eventually for or to other uses and users. We have started the process in Belize, and we are about to start this in Jamaica and the OECS. So the conversation is very timely. Thank you, Bianca, for those comments, and we look forward to working with you in the implementation of the WESR as well as in alignment with this project and all the other initiatives that are ongoing. Ryan, you like to say something?
Yeah, only while we wait for countries to give us some feedback, just to say that we've been supporting as ECLAC the Latin American countries for I think about 20 years now through many different projects, and we're so happy to now start work with our Caribbean SIDS and English-speaking Caribbean countries and states, because it's such a challenge, but it's not difficult in terms of that we have a lot of methodology developed, manuals and training tools that we will, of course, adapt with the help of our champions that just spoke. And I mean, all about the presentations and the richness of all of the previous work that has been developed and the results in terms of actual numbers and statistics and metrics and publications. So we're off to a very good start, both in terms of the champion countries and also the champion Caribbean institutions that just spoke, mainly CARICOM and OECD. And it's also very important that we are doing this partnership with UNST and all of other UN agencies that will collaborate with this. But when I, at least myself, started helping countries in 2000, there's only one country in Latin America that had some publication. And now we have many, many, many more. So just like Ms. Coy mentioned, we have been advanced, just like Mr. Snow also presented. We have a lot of advancement in the region, and we have local champions that we can rely on, and that they will help us in the training and the technical assistance missions in this project. So thank you, Abdul, and back to you.
Thank you, Ryan. I think we can open the mic for Bianca, please.
Hi there, are you hearing me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to sort of reiterate what I wrote in the chat and what you introduced there, and the conversation has been certainly very important and useful to me, and in the work that I'm doing with my colleagues on the World Environment Situation Room. The common country analysis process and the I guess the more regional analysis, which is what now? Sorry, the words are escaping me right at the moment. But the sort of regional analysis are part of the sort of initial goals for the development of this World Environment Situation Room in order to really facilitate that report writing process. But eventually, the World Environment Situation for the Caribbean will really be a one-spot hub for data and information, and also align really well with the regional approach and the regional perspective, so that data will be accessible to all users for whatever purpose they may have in mind. So initially, it will be relatively simple and focus on specific indicators and data, but also we're looking at what sort of innovative geospatial data we can include, the sort of along the lines of what Mr. Williams from Antigua presented on, in terms of having data be available and mapping and so on be something that they can sort of customize for their own uses. So those are comments. I don't have any specific questions right now, except to say thank you to all of those presenters, and I hope to be able to reach out to many of you to continue the work that we're doing.
Thank you very much, Bianca, for that intervention. So I see that Gino made a comment. I don't know if you want to, just to greet everyone, I don't know if you want to have the floor. Let us know. And the comments or questions do not necessarily have to be limited to the project. So if you have comments more generally with respect to environment statistics and disaster indicator, please, you can pick them. So we have Emil. Right. So, okay, I will, could we please open the mic for Emil? Then we will have Mr. Snow come after him. Okay, you please. Could we open the mic for Emil Ivanov? Okay, while we sort that out, since Mr. Snow has his mic already activated, please, you have the floor. We'll come back to Emil.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chair. Well, I can also say that I enjoyed all the presentations, but I would like to make a statement and put it up for discussion as well. There's going to be another side event on open data. I'm just throwing out the suggestion that environment statistics really has to be part of the open data initiative. I know for a fact that Jamaica is also completely on board, actually following their part regarding improvements on open data. So this is just a statement I'm making that environment statistics just has to be part of open data. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snow. And I know that Rena is on the call as well, so she's making notes, and we will convey this to our UNSC colleagues as well. So do we have the mic open for Emil now? Okay, yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Emil Ivanov, and I work at the Environment Statistics section here in New York at UNSD. Let me first say how happy I am to be part of this discussion. So thank you very much to the organizers and to the speakers. I also want to draw attention to the maps which were shared by Mr. Williams from Antigua. Those were maps on climate risks and vulnerability being defined by downscaling climate data. So I think I could formulate two questions. One, perhaps to Mr. Williams, if he could share a bit more detail, what sort of risks they are. Is it climate? Is it rise of sea level? Maybe risks to lose in certain tourist sites, beaches, landmarks, or risk to housing, etc. And then my other question, probably more general to the rest of the speakers, is how do you see this sort of data and information in official statistics? So we have already witnessed that vulnerability is a very hard area, and the corresponding adaptation measures and the way we would portray that in official statistics. So yeah, if you have any feedback to this kind of challenges we are facing, that will be very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor to Mr. Chamberlain to answer that question, and then we'll come back to the second question. Go ahead.
Thanks for your question. And if I understood clearly, in terms of the challenges faced in collecting the statistics, well, from the experience of the reporting under the St. George Declaration, there really, is the issue of resources, dedicated resources, and predictable resources, and both in terms of finance and personnel for that. As I think one of our earlier presenters indicated, the stats units are in many cases not the generators of that data, and they would reach out and collect. But the primary sources right now are sort of constrained in the environmental space in that regard, which is why in reframing the way we now see that collaboration with our member states, we believe it's important to deliberately program this both at the national and the regional level. We recognize, for example, there are many projects that we implement, both national and regionally, and we do not always take advantage of the resources available in those projects to help us advance in that regard, as well as making core resources available. So resources would have been some of the major challenges.
Thank you very much. On the second question of how to incorporate this data and information in official statistics, and I know these are issues that are constantly being discussed, and so I would like to call on Dr. Harrison to give us the regional perspective, and Mr. Snow, who has been a critic of this issue, to also provide a national perspective. Dr. Harrison. You're muted, Dr. Harrison. You can unmute yourself, I think.
Yeah, hello. Could you repeat the question?
The question was from Emil, was that given all the issues surrounding the challenges with generating disaster indicator, he was asking how do we incorporate data and information in this area into official statistics?
Okay. Well, my take on it is, as I said before, environment statistics is the building block for statistics in the other areas. So, for example, in terms of producing data on disaster statistics, we largely borrowed from whatever data we had on environment statistics. And I have to say the countries provide some rich information, and we also look for information. Well, we're going to say we look for information like in newspapers, newspaper articles, and any other available admin and web-related sources that we could have found information on environment statistics. So in terms of the risks and the resources, of course, the issue is, as Mr. Chamberlain said earlier, not having dedicated staff, one, and of course, what Carol said in terms of largely an unintegrated national statistical system, and one cannot but underscore the importance of an integrated national statistical system where you can have data flows from the ministries, departments, and agencies to the statistics producers. And in that context, I think the configuration of Jason Williams, which is what I thought the question that raised was about. I thought the configuration of Jason is quite an effective one in terms of building a data management system to allow the flow of data. We actually have done some work in that under a project that we recently sort of concluded with the IDB, where and from which we trained countries, including Antigua, Suriname, and other countries, to have that sort of data flow from the ministry departments and agencies to the SATS office and then to the international bodies. So we'll be happy to share that resource across the region. So that is my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrison, and for the pointing my attention to the fact that that question was directed to Jason. So I will ask Jason to actually comment on it after Mr. Snow. My apologies about that mix-up. Mr. Snow?
Okay. Thanks a lot. Basically, I'm just in support, but maybe I would have to specify it in support of what Dr. Harrison just said. First, we have to work on our NSDS, or a National Strategy for the Development of Statistics, or other types of strategic plans to incorporate all the producers of official statistics to improve coordination and collaboration within the system. Secondly, we have to realize that we have to try to close all of the gaps that we have in environment statistics, as indeed good environment statistics has to come first. And then we can look at things like SIA, the System of Environmental and Economic Accounting, and then we can look at good climate change and disaster statistics. You need to have a good foundation. And that is really, yes, that is the system-wide approach. Improve your national statistics system, improve the coordination and the collaboration within the system, close the gaps of your stats. That is the basis. And then move on towards, what would I say, the more advanced stuff, such as SIA and climate change and disaster statistics. Thanks. That is what I had to contribute.
Mr. Singh, thank you, Dr. Harrison, for those comments. I would like to go back to Mr. Williams, and Mr. Chamberlain was so kind to answer the question.
Can I say something?
Okay, yes, please.
Yes, I just want to add the important comments that Dr. Philemon Harrison and Mr. Snow mentioned, and I just want to emphasize the one word that is crucial for this process, and it has the word is coordination, and so we have to be very well coordinated. We must have a lot of coordination in between the regional statistical agencies in the Caribbean and ECLAC, for example, because of if we have some resources for this development account, for example, this is a good example in this regard. If we can apply in coordination with the statistical offices of CARICOM, just to align the main objectives that we have to create a capacity building and try to fill the gaps in this regard for the data gaps. So I think this is a crucial issue. So we have to be very well coordinated, just to have the more application of the resources that we can obtain from different funds and projects. This is my opinion. Thank
you. Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, please, could you come in and answer Emil's question?
Yes, thank you. I believe the question was relating to providing a bit more information about the downscale climate projections and the risk maps that we're developing. So we're still a few weeks away from the final delivery, but we were working with the UK Meteorological Office, who provided us with the downscale climate projections for the sub-region. And we're working with a consortium of consultants to develop those climate risk maps. So we're looking to get some average annual loss data as well as maps for the present and projections into the future based on extreme events, droughts, floods, etc. So what I can do is I can write my email address in the chat, and I believe it's Emil. Emil, you can contact me, and as soon as the site goes live with the data, we can provide you with the link. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jason. And as is always the case in meetings like this, I made mention of the high power panel that we've assembled and all the participants. So there is now a lot of interest for people to comment or ask questions. So please, if you bear with us for another 5 to 7 minutes, we should be rounding up. Let me call Rina, our colleague from UNSD. Rina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Amalai. Pleasure to see you. I'm Rina Shah, Chief of Environment Statistics Section at UNSD New York. It's my great pleasure to be joining a little bit with the discussion as well. I wanted to give others a chance before I step in and to see and talk to all of you who I pretty much know, except our colleagues, Mr. Chamberlain from OECS, but we have worked with them before. As Dr. Harrison said from CARICOM, that UNSD and CARICOM started this project on environment statistics and social agenda back in 1999. So there's a long history of work in this region, and of course we're very pleased with some of the country's efforts, especially starting off with Jamaica and Suriname, who've done tremendous work, but so many others, as Dr. Harrison said, and of course Jason Williams, who I also know from Antigua and Barbuda, working very hard as well from the ministry side, and that's really important to bring everybody together. So just a couple of words. I really appreciate the emphasis over and over again on strengthening environment statistics, first, because I think that is often seen. And I think to have a really strong, robust, climate change statistics, other areas, environmental, it's really good to have this, foundation. So I also appreciate the reference to the global work. So we, as you know, set of climate change statistics and indicators. And with this, I'd also like to commend ECLAC, both in Santiago, there, and of course Dan Corliss at ECLAC Trinidad for starting up this new project focusing on the English-speaking Caribbean. And we're very pleased because I think we can be part of this, as we had several discussions, and work side by side and help when we can, and be part of it with CARICOM, of course, as well, and continue this work, because I've been in this job for almost 32 years, and in environmental statistics, and it is a slow but developing area of statistics, and I think one has to have vision because it doesn't mature so quickly. But now, especially when I look at this region, I see what Dr. Harrison pointed out. I mean, so many countries have done fantastic work and continue. So it just makes us so pleased to see that initiative. And climate change is a new area as a disaster, but I think coming together is exactly what Mr. Campos said. The coordination is key, because everyone can do their own work and projects, and if we can come together and share our valuable resources, it is really, really important. Just to add, Jamaica, we know, was the first country that, under Karakoy and Janet Martin, who produced the first climate change statistics report from the National Statistical Office. In my understanding, in the whole world, in fact, I've even put that in writing now because I don't know others. And Tanzania, just so you know, has come out with the second report. Their first climate change statistics report, the National Statistical Office. So it's just so we're waiting for you to announce it, then it'll be the third. But, this is really fantastic because, it's, again, building on environment statistics, but organizing, repackaging the indicators that you need for climate change. So we are very, very happy with the project, mostly with ECLAC and both the ECLAC. Everybody there, so I think really push forward in this region and go even deeper in these particular areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Misha, for those comments and the words of encouragement. So, as you mentioned, this is a work that we are all committed to, and we will work collaboratively to ensure the desirable outcome that we all are looking forward to. Just for the participants to note, there is a link sent on the chat platform for you to conduct a brief evaluation survey. We will really appreciate your feedback. So if you could take a few minutes to just click on that link and complete the survey. There is a comment from Mr. Junior, just indicating that he thinks that the presentations are extremely informative and useful. And he's particularly pleased with the presentation from the OECS made by Emmanuel Chamberlain. Now, there was a mention of big data, so I would like to quickly return to that and ask Pauline to make a few comments on that, and then we will close after Pauline's comments. Pauline?
Thank you very much, Abdul. Just to add something to the very important comment Mr. Snow mentioned about open data, there is actually an initiative that we worked a little bit upon by the World Resources Institute about a guide to open data related to climate change. And this is very interesting work. I do believe it is very important that all this information is actually prepared since the beginning and processed as open data, precisely to encourage integration of data, as Rolando was mentioning a bit earlier. So I will also share this information with the rest of the colleagues. Thank you, Abdul.
Thank you very much, Pauline. And I think at this stage, I will call on Mr. Ocampo to conclude this side event. And before I do that, I just want to, on behalf of all my colleagues at ECLAC, UNSC, and CARICOM, to thank you all for really participating actively in the side event. And we look forward to your collaboration and participation, active participation in the project for the next 3 or so weeks. Okay, thank you. And over to you, Rolando.
I would like to ask all the colleagues if you can open your video just to take the official photo of the side event, and then I will ask Pauline or our colleague Alberto Malmierca if he can support us with this photo to all the colleagues that are participating in this event. You can tell me when you are ready, Alberto. Just
ready. I will wait for all the colleagues and all the panelists to turn on their camera to take the photo. So I'm just
smile, please.
Diane, okay. Oh, smile, everyone. Okay, I have you. I have the photo. Okay, Diane, you are mute. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And with this, I would like to thank all of you. This was an excellent and extraordinary side event under the umbrella of the the 52nd session of the Statistical Commission of the United Nations. This is it was a great honor for us. Let me tell you that from the Statistical Conference of the Americas, this is the only side event that we propose to be launched during the 52 session because of the importance of the Development Account 12 that we are working with the Caribbean context and with 2 colleagues. And it was an honor for me just to be part of this, and I want to thank all the colleagues, in particular Rajen, Abdullahi, Pauline, and all of the colleagues, of course, my dear friend Diane Juarez, with the support of this side event. And I want to thank you and hope to see you soon. And soon in person. Hope that the second semester will be better for us, for all the world. And take care. And thank you very much. Have a good afternoon to all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Take care.